In today's video, I'm going to be putting together and upgrading the central machinery parts washer. I'm going to be doing three main things to it. I'm going to add heat to it, I'm going to add an inline fuel filter, and I'm going to set up a two-stage sump in this bucket by relocating the pump. Yeah, so here we go. Alright, here's everything that comes in the kit. You have your big wash basin, two racks for cleaning. One sits inside and then one's the bucket. You have your sump cover. This is the bottom plate, your four legs, your sprayer, and your nuts and bolts. So now we'll put it together real quick. Legs are on. Alright, this red piece usually goes here in these holes. I'm putting two 5-gallon buckets underneath of it, so I need to redo that. So I measured down 2 inches from the top to the top of this red piece, clamped it all down. Now I'm going to drill and bolt these in. I got everything drilled and bolted on. Like I said, this is about 2 inches from the bottom. Now I'm going to go ahead and drill some little holes so I can attach it to my rolling cart. Okay, so I had this all mocked up, and then I decided to put some 2x4 feet on it. So these are like 27¼ wide, and I just screwed down, so now I'll put the red plate back on. Here it is with the 2x4s mounted on the bottom, and the secondary support all mounted in. Now I'm going to attach it to my rolling dolly. That's pretty much as far as I'm going to take it today. I put it all together, I relocated this, I screwed this down to the dolly, so now we're all good and we can start modifying the rest of it. It's the next day here. I got the base set up yesterday, and now I'm going to go ahead and start working on all the wiring. So the first thing I'm going to do is mount my box. Okay, now my box is in, I can go ahead and start wiring up my pump and my 2 heaters. Okay, for my heat setup, I have these oil pan warmers. They're basically just 3M sticky, and I'll stick them to the bottom of the pan, so when it's the fluid will get warmed up as it's draining and sitting in the pan. So right now I'm just setting them up where I want them. Gonna measure out. So I'm going to solder these two together so that there will only be one wire going into the box. Alright, here's my heating setup. I have each one now stuck down. I ran it around, and I'm just holding it on with some basically HVAC like ductwork tape, because I know it can hold up to the heat. I soldered these wires together right here, and then the one single wire comes out and goes into the back of this box here. So now we'll work on wiring up the pump and then the main power for this. For my power coming from the wall, I just took a cheap $7 power outlet, and I cut this, and this is what I'm going to use for this. So I'm just going to run this through this bottom grommet, give myself enough room to work. So now we have the heater, the main power. Now we just need to hook up the pump. Okay, I took this pump apart. This is just like a 1/4 inch MPT air fitting that I screwed right onto here with a little bit of Teflon tape. I had to solder the connection right together right here because this is where the switch was. Then I drilled a hole in this bucket, fed my wire through. So now this pump will sit in the bucket right here, and I'll go ahead and pull some more of this wire through and fish it through top here. Okay, now I have most of my wiring done. I have the pump ready, the main power, and the heater. So now we'll work on wiring up the switch. I'm pretty much done with the wiring, but before I put the switch on, I just wanted to show what it was. So first, we have the pump. This is, so both grounds, the heaters don't have a ground, it's just hot and neutral. So for the pump and the main power supply, I tied those grounds together, and then I have this lead. It should be green, but it's red. This is my ground. So those two are connected, and then all the whites or neutrals are connected together. This is a white, but it's just because of this cord, that's why it looks like this. And then the white from the pump and the power supply are all hooked together, and then all the hots are split. So this is from the power line in, this will be for the heaters, and this will be for the pump. And the way that works is, on this side, the black side, you just put your hot wire in, and as long as you don't remove this tab, both these switches will be hot. And then on the other side, you'll put your heater and your pump on the top and bottom, however you like, and then of course your ground on the green. So I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Here are the switches all put together. Like I said, I have this, which is the big wire, which is the pump, going to the top switch. Then I have the heater going to the bottom switch. I have my ground hooked up and the main power supply on this side. So now all that's left is just to fit it all inside this box and test it out. Here it is wired in. Here's my pump. It's on. And then here's my heaters. Make sure they work. Yep, they're both nice and hot. For this next part, I'm gonna be working on the plumbing, and I'm gonna work from the bottom up. So right now, I'm gonna use this Brillo pad as a filter. So I'm gonna mark a square around, and then I'll be able to drill out some holes for the water to come up through. So I'm just gonna draw a rough square around to give me an idea of where I wanna be. Then I'm going to drill some holes, and then the second thing I'm going to do is drill a 1/2-inch hole over here for my line to go through into the bottom bucket. Alright, I think that should work. Now on this side, I'm just going to drill a hole for the line to go straight down through. Okay, for this next part, I just have zip ties that I'm gonna stick down. I've already started to stick down through, and then I'll send them back up just to kind of hold this piece and this pad in place. Okay, now I have a screen for when the water comes up. Have the felt on, have my pump in. Got the wiring in. Now I'm gonna drill a hole here in order to fish my drain line through. Now I'm gonna work on the drain. The first thing I'm gonna do is remove this old drain plug, because I'm not gonna get under here and screw and unscrew this every time I wanna do something with it. Instead of that drain pipe, I have one of these which has a valve on it. So it'll screw right in, and then I can just hook my drain hose right to the end of this. So if I ever want to change it, I can just turn the valve off. Alright, it's the next day, and I was thinking about it last night, and I decided to change out how I'm doing the plumbing a little bit. I'm going to move my pump over to this bucket, and then I'm going to add a U siphon in between them to keep the water level the same and transfer into this bucket. That way when my pump is pumping, it'll pump hopefully mostly clean solution up to my filter and then out the top. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. The first thing I did was I switched the top of the lid over to the single bucket and move my pump over, and then in each side I have this little 45 at the end, and I drilled a hole through the top, and I did the same thing over here. So now we just have to figure out how far apart we're going to have these buckets and make a bridge in between here. Okay, I've cut the pipe here, put the 290s on, and then put a T-valve here. So now I'm just going to put a shut-off valve so that I can prime this when the fluid is in here. Okay, here it is from the top angle. You can see I've added this connector, this shut-off valve, and then it comes here to this hose where I can prime the line. Here's the line. Basically I can have this open and suck all the air out of it so that the siphon will work to prime it, and then just shut that closed. Moving my bucket further away from the drain made my drain hose too short, so now I'm going to drill another hole in here to hook up to the drain, and then the hole that I was using for the drain on this top will be the exit from the pump out of this top. Now I'm going to just hook up my hose to my pump. Okay, we'll drop that down in there. Then we're going to feed the feed line out of it. Then we'll just set this in here like this. Okay, what I'm going to be using for this is just a Amazon fuel tank filter. I see a lot of guys using oil filters, and I think that that's just wrong. You should be using a fuel filter that can take this high flow water-like, basically. What, you know, if you think about what you're going to be using, it's going to be a lot closer to fuel than oil, and a lot of these cartridges just don't handle as well as a fuel tank filter. So I'm just going to mount it up to the side and show you how that's done. I'm going to mount this fuel filter pretty easily. Basically I put this bracket here to hold this clamp, and I'm just going to slide this in just like this and tighten it up. There we go, it's nice and sturdy. I've seen people get the ones with the mount or whatever, but I think you should just get whatever's cheapest, and you can always, you know, find a way to mount this stuff. Now I have my inlet here, and I just have to run it over here. Okay, I don't know what happened to the footage of me doing the work after the fuel filter, but basically I just cut the top of this off and cut it square, drilled 6 holes in it through this, put these screws and bolts in it. Then I drilled a 1/2 inch hole right here, slid the wand through. This is a female MPT and a washer, and then I just hooked up the rest of the line. That was pretty much all the missing footage. Here I'm going to show you it. Here's the upper part of the spout. There's my electrical. You see my siphon, and then here's the primer tube. Over here we have the fuel filter running up into this. And then underneath, if you can see, those are my heaters. And then everything is kind of just wired up in the back right there. And then that's my shut-off valve. So I think for the first test, I'm gonna fill up the primary bucket here, turn the pump on, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to. Once we fill up into this bucket some, and we still have some in this, I will prime the siphon and make sure that works. Alright, here it is. Power's on, so we're gonna flip the pump on. And there we go. It's priming the fuel pump now. The fuel filter. There it goes. I've been running this thing for a little while. It works pretty good. You see I've filled up some fluid. Go ahead and turn it on here again. The only thing that pisses me off is it's leaking from this piece, but it doesn't really affect the flow too much, so I'm gonna leave it for now. But that's some Harbor Freight craftsmanship for you. Alright, there's a bunch of water in this bucket now, and we're pretty much down to nothing here. So now I'm gonna prime the siphon by sucking all the air out of it. Alright, and as you can see, it's primed. More is going into this tank, and we're filling up here. Hopefully I will not have to do that many times. I've been running this thing for about 10 or 15 minutes so far, and pretty much the level in the bucket's never changed. I kind of fixed it. If anyone else is having this problem, I would suggest putting some, I think it's 7/8 clear tube on it. At least it's not leaking right down the side. It's pretty much right over top of the drain. Again, it doesn't really affect the actual parts cleaner, so I don't know. It's Harbor Freight, but if you gotta fix it, that's what I would do. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you guys like it. Let me know what you guys would change down in the comments. And just remember, this is for water-based solvents. If you're using like Tractor Supply, like PSC 1000 or something, you do not want to put a heater on it. This is just simple green and water. This is the like HD Pro, and I just put 2 of these in with however much water would go. So thanks for watching.